All right, so very similar to the last one here, example 3. So you're doing something by a percentage. In this case, you want to reduce the size of a picture to place in a small frame. You aren't sure what size to choose on the photocopier, so you decide to reduce the picture by 15% each time you scan it until you get the size you want. If the picture was 10 inches long to start, how long is it after 3 scans? So we're reducing by 15%. So again, that's going to be, we're going from 100% down 15% each time. So similar to the last one, I'm going to start off with what that percentage becomes, and then we'll do the same sort of setup. But because it's a percentage each time, it's repeated multiplication. Okay. So that again means it's going to be exponential. And when it's decay, we use the same formula that we use for growth, but we make a very small change. Because it's getting smaller or reducing in size, we're going to do 1 minus r to the t. Okay, everything else is the same. A is your initial value. R is your rate that it's changing by, and t is your interval of time. I'm just going to put interval. All right, so, and then of course y is the final answer or the total that you end up with. Okay. All right, so in this problem, what are we starting with? Do we know? Let's see, we read through it again. If the picture was 10 inches long at the start, there's your initial value. So A is 10. Again, we already talked about the 100% becoming the 1, and this being the rate that we're changing by. So we have 1 minus 15% becomes 0.15. And then T, how long are we doing it for? Well, it's not really time this time. It's a certain number of things. So in this case, the interval is each scan. All right, so we're going to do that 3 times. So if I clean that up a little bit, that's 10 times 0.85 to the third. And again, this means 0.85 times 0.85 times 0.85, and then multiplied by 10. Okay, the 10 is not affected by that exponent of 3. So that becomes 0.614125. Okay, again, I'm not rounding yet. I want to get my final answer before I try and round to be as consistent as possible. All right, and then my final answer is y is approximately 6.14. All right, so what does that mean? After 3 scans, the length of the picture is about 6 inches, or 6.14, or 6.14 inches, or if you wanted to round it to, unless the problem specifically says, and of course y'all can't see that, I apologize, let me slide up just a hair, or 6 inches. Okay, so that would be your final answer. Again, depending on what the question asked for would depend on what you would need to round to. If you're trying to get is your picture frame a 6x8 or a 6x9 or whatever, you might need to be aware that it has that 0.14, because if it's exactly 6, then that you're going to need to scale it down even a little bit more, maybe a smaller percentage, because it won't fit still. But if you measure your frame and it will accommodate 6.14, then you'll probably be okay. All right, so just be aware. Think about your answers there. Unless it specifically tells you to round to a decimal place, like the 10th place or the 100th place, round to a decimal place that makes sense. All right, that's all your examples for Module 2. This finishes up 1.2.3, which finishes up Module 2. So make sure you get all your assignments done. Again, quiz is on the 14th. So all the stuff in this module needs to be done by the 14th. You can move on to the task at this time.